Welcome back, everybody. Today we have Brandon on here, and Brandon, where are you calling from?
Cedar Rapids, Iowa.
All right, how's the weather there?
Actually, for the end of October, it's gonna be 82 degrees today.
All right, so pretty nice then, right?
Very nice. Very sunny, very breezy.
Yeah, same here today, which is kind of crazy. Usually it's outrageously hot, but today it's nice breeze. It's beautiful out today.
Same.
That's a good deal. So, Brandon, are you married? You have any
Uh,
kids?
I am legally still married. I'm actually going through a divorce right now.
Okay.
I have a 4-month-old daughter and a 2-year-old daughter.
Oh, two daughters.
Yes, sir. They are gorgeous.
I bet that's awesome, man. Yeah, having kids is it's a whole new ball game.
Yeah, it really makes you stop thinking about yourself first and kind of
Yep,
everything's all about them.
it is. It 100%. That is, definitely good because so you said your oldest is 2. So
Yep.
you've had 2 years to deal with that, with working too.
Sort of. So my 2-year-old that's going on 3 in April was kind of a surprise, and I didn't actually know she existed until this year,
Oh, boy.
which started the divorce.
Oh, I gotcha.
So,
I follow, man.
yeah,
Kind of a good and, bad surprise all at the same time, huh?
I wouldn't trade
Good
it for the
because
world. She's an
yeah,
amazing
exactly.
little girl.
That's awesome, dude. That's awesome. Alright, so let's get into, what do you do for work?
I'm a union iron worker. I just switched over from the laborers union in August over to the ironworkers union. I was a union laborer for 5.5 years. Did a lot of traveling for a while, a lot of concrete pours, bridges, highways, walls, buildings, footings, all kinds of stuff. Um, before that, before I was union, fresh out of high school, I got into roofing houses for a few summers and did that for a while. That was kind of my introduction into like the blue collar kind of life, and I loved it.
Yeah.
I've never once really been the kind of guy to be able to sit still in an office all day and just push pencils. I mean, could not be me. But, you know, I've I've just always enjoyed working with my hands. I grew up in a military household with a dad that, grew up dirt poor on a farm. So you learn how to fix things because you don't pay people to fix things, you can fix
That's
yourself.
right.
So
Exactly.
yeah, I mean, it's been a journey through the trades. It kind of took me a while to figure out what I really wanted to do, and I think once I joined a union, I kind of really understood where I needed to be and the
Okay.
benefit of the union, and I've never looked back.
That's awesome, dude. Yeah. So you said that your dad you come from a military household. Was your father in the military?
Yep, my dad just retired a few years ago from the Army. He spent 33 years in the Army.
Oh, boy. Thank him for his service, man. That's
Absolutely.
incredible. That's a true
I
hero right there. That's awesome.
served in Desert Storm and uh, a year and a half when I was in first grade. He was in Kuwait for Desert, or not Desert Storm, but for Iraqi freedom.
Okay. Wow. That's awesome. Um,
Mhm.
was there any other blue collar in your family?
So a lot of the males in my family have been in some kind of trade or like some kind of line of blue collar work, whether it's working in a factory or something. But the key tradition really in our family is every male has served in a branch of the military.
Yeah.
I unfortunately, when I was 18, I enlisted in the Marines and I didn't make it through MEPS, which kind of shifted me over into the trades. But yeah,
Yeah, but I mean, you found your way. I mean, you found what you want to do, and
Yeah, I found
There
my
it is.
niche.
You got into it. Yeah. So, all right. So you started doing the iron worker. How do you like that right now?
So, compared to being a laborer,
Yeah.
I went through the apprenticeship as a laborer, and within a few years, I was on jobs where I ended up constantly being like lead guy or, being my foreman's right hand. And I was honestly really starting to get bored with it. And with the divorce and everything, it was like, kind of want to make more money. And when I switched over to the ironworkers, the benefits are better. The the scope of work is less dull. Um, there's like never a moment where I'm not busy at work. It's like we're constantly moving, constantly getting things done, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah. It makes your day go by so much easier too.
Yeah, I
Yeah. I
mean,
mean, you're
you
tired at
know,
the end of the day, but you're not sitting around bored and going, then the day is dragging on. That's the worst.
right, and I don't have to like manage, 18-year-old apprentices that don't know how to, read a tape measure anymore, So, I mean, we were all 18 and couldn't read a tape measure at some point,
Yeah.
but it just seems like as the years go by in the trades, these
Or
18-year-olds are getting a little bit worse and worse every year.
yeah, I witnessed, I have a good buddy who has a shop. He had an apprentice there for his mechanic shop, and, yeah, the new generation, it is just it blows my mind on the stuff that when we were that young, it was like, "Hey, do this." It was roll up, a extension cord. He didn't know how to roll it up. "What? Roll it up, man. Like this?
Yeah,
No, no, don't do it on your arm like that because it's gonna tangle up. Roll it up nice." I don't know how to do that. My god. Sweep the floor. Which way you want me to sweep it?
right.
I want you to clean it. Get it done.
Get the sweeping compound out, get it nice and pretty.
Yeah. I don't know, new generation, it's kinda scary.
Dude, we had a kid on our job site when I switched over to ironworking, 18-year-old probationary apprentice, couldn't read a tape, and, I came in because of my experience in the trades, they slotted me in as a second-year apprentice towards the end of the second-year apprentice as an ironworker, and this kid, I had to teach him how to use a gas can. As crazy as that sounds,
Well,
you know how,
well
like, the gas cans have that pull tab on the top? He didn't understand how that worked because it's not, a plastic gas can that you would use to fill your lawnmower at home or anything. It's, the metal one with the nozzle and the pull tab on top, and
oh,
I can't believe
yeah.
I had to teach a kid how to use that.
You're talking like a metal can, right?
Yeah,
That's what you're saying, a metal can? It literally has the handle with the hand all you do is you just pull that's almost common sense, man.
that's what I
That's like
thought.
I think my
I
son could do that, and he's 6.
I literally had to record this because I was telling my friends about it, and I was like, "You're not gonna believe this unless you see it on camera." You know? Like, it's one of those things where it's just like, it should just click. You shouldn't have
Yeah.
to ask for help for that.
I
But,
don't know.
I get it. I think one of his biggest problems was that, you know and this is what I see with a lot of this younger generation that are getting into the trades, I don't see a lot of them being hungry, wanting to learn things, wanting to move up. They just want a job. They just want somewhere to go. And so I get irritated with the fact that a lot of them, it's like they got their ear pods in, they got their phone out, they're not asking you why you do something you're doing or how you do it that way. They're just kind of there. And it's
I
like
love
you're
how
not
you're
going to
thinking about
learn
that.
anything. You're not going to advance your
Yeah.
career if you don't ask questions, if you don't try to take the initiative to do these things at work. You're certainly not going to learn with your phone in your hand all day.
You're 100% right. I would say I get into this discussion like, good 80% of the time of my guests,
Oh, I mean,
and
it's just
it's
it's
it's the new
there.
generation that, you know which I've said this 1,000 times. You look at blue collar when we were growing up and, you wanted to be blue collar like your dad or your mother was in this or whatever, your uncle, whoever. You always looked up to blue collar. Well, most people in the United States when we were growing up, blue collar was looked down on. Oh, you're lower class or you're mid class, but now blue collar, the money is like incredible.
Right,
And you have this new generation that sees that now and they're like, "Oh, I want to be an iron worker." They're chasing the paycheck. Don't chase the money, chase a dream.
right,
Have
because the
passion
money's
in your
gonna
job.
come.
Exactly. Find a job that you want to do. Like, you wanna wake up and you wanna get up, get dressed, and be like, "I wanna go to work." Find that job. Don't chase the money because you're never gonna be happy, and then you're just gonna quit or you're gonna get fired. Like you're saying, walking around, you're not taking it serious because you're thinking, "On Friday, that paycheck's gonna come," and that's all you're doing is just collecting a check. Now you need to take
Right.
pride in your job.
Well, not to mention, like, ironworking in general as a trade, it has danger to it, and so when I see these younger
Absolutely.
kids walking around, not paying attention, like whenever I was running the sky track, picking beams or setting beams with the sky track or something, this kid would get in the line of fire between a beam and like a concrete wall or something. And I'd stop the sky track and I'd just look at him and like, what are you doing? He's like, well, I'm just going to the bathroom or something. I'm like, no, like, what are you doing in this moment? He's like, what do you mean? I was like, are you paying attention to like how close you are to a steel beam and a wall? Like that's the kind of pinch point where you get stuck
Yeah.
in that. A, I'm gonna feel like crap because I just hurt you. B, you're not really gonna be able to just get up and walk away from that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, you're exactly. That's a great point, and I think that it's a huge problem. Like you said, kids are. I think social media is a good thing, and I think social media has ruined the generation now
Oh, yeah.
because that is it. That they're glued to the phone, and I've actually had a couple other guests that manage job sites. That is exactly what they said. That these kids are walking around ear pods in. They're looking at their phone and they're doing this. They're not paying attention. And yeah, you could get hurt, but you also have the chance of hurting somebody else and not even realizing it.
Right.
That's
And
scary.
that's the scariest part because at the end of the day, we all wanna go home safe. We all wanna, walk back through the door and see our families, but we also wanna be able to know that we didn't cause some kind of accident at work
Yeah.
through negligence that caused someone else not to go home to their family.
Yeah, you just gotta, I've said this 1,000 times too, is that I think that there should be more awareness of the fact that we get into a groove working these jobs so many days, so many hours that it's just like second nature. You walk into work, you know exactly what you're gonna do. All right, we're doing this, we're doing that, and it's just you're just following the steps. But you get to this point where you have blinders on, where you're not really aware of what's happening around you anymore because you're so focused on this thing you do every single day. But I think we forget that stuff breaks, freak accidents happen.
Yeah,
Shit breaks and you can't help it. Like you said, you're running that crane. Well, what if the cable just come loose all of a sudden, that hook come off that you didn't do it, but if that kid ain't paying attention, he's walking under it, well, now he's in the hospital,
right, and
and I
that's
think we forget
something
about
that's
that.
gonna eat you at
Y
night at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
I just there's a lot of times, like, when I was a union laborer, I participated a lot with the union hall. I always looked at my time in the union as more than just my 9 to 5 go to work. I went to meetings, I went to, like, political stake dinners and stuff, and, I I often would like, I was friends with the training coordinator, so whenever he put on classes, I'd come in and I'd help him teach these classes so I could kind of, get to know some of these new apprentices, kind of give them a little coaching, a little guidance, that way when they do hit the field, like they're not completely clueless. And I took a lot of pride in that. And I think that when I got into the trades, I remember getting into roofing. My boss, I mean, I couldn't even lift a bundle of shingles. I was fresh out of high school. I was, a pothead back then. I was a little troublemaker, but I couldn't lift a bundle of shingles. And I remember they looked at me, they were like, "You're not gonna last 3 days." I did 3 years with them. It started off with the spite of, "Oh, 3 days? I got you."
Yeah,
you know?
that's exactly what it is.
And then I
Yeah.
fucking just fell in love with it, and it's just like, I don't see that much anymore with these kids. It's just like, but at the same time, you know, I remember when I was screwing up at work, I had someone screaming at me, and it
Yes.
would sink in. Now they don't want you to scream at these kids because they'll look at you and go, "Well, if you scream at them and they run off the job, then we're down a guy, and now we gotta find another guy." And it's like,
But if he's not
uh,
doing what he has to do, then what's the point of having him? If he runs off, you're not really not losing a guy, you're kinda saving money on that paycheck that you ain't getting
right, you're
paid.
saving money for the company at some point.
Yeah.
I
No,
mean, we're gonna not gonna bleed out assets just because someone can't get it together,
that's right. No,
but,
I
you
don't
know
think kids understand these days that knowledge is power,
mhm,
especially in the
100%.
trades. If you have so many notches in your belt, there's so many opportunities for you out there, you know? Welding and you were like, alright, you're in the iron worker.
Mhm.
What do you do every day?
Every day I show up to work, right now, we're kinda wrapping up this parking ramp that we've been working on, which is kind of like oriental steel. It's kind of, you know so stuff we're building is getting covered up by plywood, basically, but, um we've got these beams that do go in that you're gonna see all the time. So there's a lot of connecting on this job, but there's a lot of welding too. And
Yeah.
coming into the iron workers, I didn't have any prior welding experience or anything. So that's all new to me. I'm really trying to get a hang of it. I mean, welding looks easy as hell on TikTok, but
No.
once you get into stick welding, it's a different animal.
Oh,
We
stick
do a lot of
welding.
wire box, but that flex core stuff is super sweet. But that stick welding, it takes a little bit more skill.
That was my jam. Stick welding all day. TIG?
I mean,
No, I'm not good at TIG. I've done it a little bit here and there just to play around. I'm no TIG welder. Stick welder?
I haven't done
All
it
day.
yet.
But MIG, that wire feed, that gets boring.
It's easier. I
That's what it
mean,
was. You're just dragging
uh,
it and or pushing it, whatever you wanna do. It's just like
and I say anybody can do a flat weld, but when you start doing verts, that's where it's kind of a struggle because you gotta get good penetration and you gotta
Yep.
get a clean bead.
Same thing doing overhead.
Hmm.
But see, that's what I'm saying here is that you went in not knowing how to weld, and now you're getting into that field of learning and watching and figuring it out, and that's what the newer generation you need to if you guys are watching this, you need to realize that, if there's an opportunity that you can learn on a job site, take it. Take it and run with it because
100%.
one day when you get fired or you quit that job, the next job you go and they're gonna say, "What's your experience?" Well, you're not gonna be like, "Well, I hammered in nails over here." Well, now you can say, "I hammered nails, I did a little welding, I did a little torching, I did this," and it's like, "Okay, well, you know more than the guy that came in earlier and applied." It
Right.
definitely helps you out, and in the end, I mean, is definitely just all that knowledge is good to have because your opportunities are endless.
100%. I mean, and I'll preach that to every young apprentice I meet. The more you know, the farther you'll go.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you know, if you get laid off from this company and you want to go to another company, you know, Hey, you have a better chance getting off the bench at the hall if you've got a weld cert, if you've got your OSHA 30, if you're going to class, doing what you got to do, and getting your certifications, and you can sit there and say, "Hey, I have on the field experience and this and that." You're better off than the guy that's on the bench and only has one cert.
Exactly. Yep.
You're going back to work faster than the next guy.
Yep.
And then the other big thing I always tell these kids is, it's one thing to show up to work and put in the initiative, but you want to be a good hand at a company, 90% of it is showing up to work and being on time and not calling in once a week, not, showing up drunk or, hungover or something stupid. It's showing up that shows that, hey, you're worth keeping around.
If you're on time, you're late.
Mhm.
That is what my boss used to tell me.
15 minutes early.
You're
That's what
on
my mom
time,
always
you're
taught
late.
me. Mom
Wow.
drilled that one in my head at a young age. You're not 15 minutes early, you're 15 minutes late.
But you said it earlier that, you learn now, I learned the same way. We've learned from old school blue collar, and you get screamed at, you get cussed up and down. That's how I learned and grew up, and it I think that kids need that today.
Oh, I agree.
And I think they have to understand that the new generation that's coming into the blue collar industries, that if your boss gets on your ass and starts yelling and cussing at you, don't take it to heart.
Yeah, don't take it to
You
heart
learn
at
from it.
all. They're trying to make you better.
That exactly, and, we had a saying, it was "Leave your feelings at the gate," because
Mhm.
that's you have to. You can't go into any job and think that you're not gonna get yelled at, or you're not gonna get into it with another employee, or people are gonna talk shit to you. You can't take it to heart. You have to just go with it, because if you do, you're gonna quit. You're not gonna be able to make it. That's
100%.
how
I mean,
that's how it is.
I remember when I was a young labor apprentice, I was a bit of a hothead back then. I
Oh,
started
yeah.
off as a masonry tender. Bricklayers are assholes. They are. They will try to run off laborers from jobs to see if they're going to stick around. And I I was able to tend, 4 to 6 bricklayers on my own, you know, no problem, whatever. But I get bored because I don't have time to, like, stand around, and if you're already cleaned up and organized and you got time to stand around, what are you gonna do? You're gonna pull out your phone probably, especially if you're young. So, I remember back then being a hothead, if someone ran their mouth, I you know, I'd only let them run their mouth so much before I started talking back myself, or, a couple times getting into fights on job sites, but, you know, the crazy part was you could still keep the job with that company even after those instances if you were good enough hand, you know?
Yeah.
And I think that a lot of times we're kind of in a boat where you have to be careful what you say anymore just because a lot of these kids are sensitive. They're either going to run off the job or they're going to try to go tell somebody that, hey, this guy's a dick, you know? And
Which
I
is
think
crazy to
that
me.
we're we're moving to a softer generation of construction workers, but I also don't see as much interest in the trades as there should be anymore. A lot of
Yeah,
these
I
kids
feel the
are
same
like,
way.
I want to be a streamer or I want to go to college and screw around for 4 years for a liberal arts degree, you know?
Yeah. No, I would love to see more of the younger generation in blue collar, but like you said, it is that I think that everyone is getting so sensitive lately, and it's just crazy because you need that old school boss to be behind you. If you wanna be a good blue collar worker, you're gonna get that from learning from somebody who's been in the industry 40 years, 50 years, and they're gonna tear you up and down, but you're
Mhm.
gonna learn so much from them. I had, the boss I learned from the most, he was an old school miner, and, I mean, if you looked wrong, he'd fucking cuss you up and down.
Oh, yeah.
But he would swing a sledgehammer right beside you, and, 70-year-old man. Tell you if you drank too much water, "Don't drink too much water because we ain't got time to piss today." Okay. Yep.
Yeah,
Gotcha. But I mean,
100%.
yeah, it's that's what I think that a lot of these companies now, they are trying to be, more appealing for the more sensitive people because that's just the way the world's turning right now, but I think that we do need some old school back in these trades to kick it up a notch and really teach the younger generation.
And if there is anybody from the younger generation out there watching this today, like, just understand that when like we said, when you're getting yelled at, don't take it to heart. But
Don't.
these older guys that have been in the trades for a long time, that know their job, that know their trade, that have experience in other things, taking their advice at work is one thing, but these guys also have a lot of out of work, really solid life advice. Like, I am still really close with my roofing boss from when I got out of high school. That guy gave me really solid life advice when I left roofing to go join another trade. You know, one of his biggest preaches to me was like, "Hey, you're going to start making better money than you did roofing. Don't sit there and think that, hey, I've got all this money to blow and start putting yourself in all kinds of financial situations where, okay, now you're living paycheck to paycheck because you've got a loan for A, Y, Z, you know? And I think that it's important to kind of get the perspective of a lot of these guys that have been around for generations because they've really been through it. Like, even with my divorce and whatnot, I've met a lot of guys, I try not to talk about it a lot at work, but it does get brought up. And a lot of these guys will tell their stories about, oh, I was divorced once or twice. There's there's solid advice out there, just even outside of your scope of work from these guys that you should listen to, or at
I
least
think
have an ear for.
I think you're absolutely 100% right on that. I wish I would have listened numerous times, especially like what you just said, saving money. But you younger guys that are out there and you get these jobs, iron worker, oil field. I know you oil field boys. The first thing you guys do when we
Oh
go buy
yeah.
new trucks.
They want to go buy a diesel, right? The fuck away.
Buy a used one, bro. Buy a used one and beat the brakes off it.
100%.
Save your money. Put some money in the bank because one day if you get laid off and you ain't got nothing in the bank, you panic. You don't know what to do. It's nice to have that little bit of cushion to lean back on until you find something different? So for the
Oh yeah.
younger crew, put some money in the bank, man. Yeah, get you a nice truck. Put some money in the bank too, though.
And always remember those trucks, those big diesel trucks. You want to go spend 100,000 on a truck and have a $700 a month truck payment. Cool. But you could probably go on marketplace, find a bulletproofed one for
Yeah, it's
20,
already
30
done.
grand and put money away and not have a $700 a month truck payment.
Exactly. Yep.
Because I tell you, the scariest thing once you're laid off and you have bills is, how am I going to pay these bills? Because I'm not pulling in that overtime money anymore.
Yeah. Yeah, you gotta exactly. That's what I'm saying. Even that right there, you're not even getting laid off. Say you're working a crazy job. Well, that job gets finished. Yeah, you might have work after that, but like you just said, that overtime money, you might not be getting that. So your bills are gonna drop. I mean, your paycheck's gonna drop. Your bills are gonna stay the same.
Hmm.
Put some money in the bank.
And it gets worse when you start bringing in kids and
Ex
mortgages and all
Yep.
that into it, because now you really got to think like, hey, I can't start blowing money like I used to because diapers aren't cheap.
Not at all, dude. Not
you
at
know,
all.
Kids got to eat too. You ain't got $300 to go fill your tank on your
Ye
diesel truck.
So for your job, do you do a lot of traveling right now?
Not right now. I'm mostly working locally. I've been on a
Okay.
project in Iowa City for since I switched over. Like I said, we're just building a parking ramp outside of Kinnick Stadium. So, I mean, it's been pretty cool to see some of the stuff that we've done there. There's just a lot of galvanized steel welding, which sucks. I
I know
mean,
that sucks.
that galvanized stuff is just I remember the f the first side we started on, the east side of the structure, we were doing all the, in the concrete, there's a bunch of embeds across the top row on the east side, and each one gets like a pillar thing that we connect, uh, our channels to, and you have to go back and you have to weld all the way around on the end of the tube, and then you've gotta go to the top of it, weld a piece there, and weld it to an embed that comes from the bottom of the concrete. And it was so like the galvanization on the steel was so thick that our foreman shut us down, called the safety guy, and was like, "Hey, we need like respirator welding hoods. Like
I was just
this
gonna
is
say,
bad."
yeah, when you weld on galvanized, you definitely want a respirator because, I mean, if not, you will get super sick
Oh yeah,
afterwards.
that galvanization poisoning stuff is no
Yeah,
joke. I mean, you
it's
will
rough.
feel sick for days.
Yep, I've had it. I've done it, not even thinking either, because no one told me.
Right.
Just starting to do it, and then, like, I would say a couple hours into it, I just felt like shit. Nauseous,
Yeah, I've
just wanted to
seen
throw
how
up.
sick those guys get.
Yeah, definitely want a respirator.
But I mean, so far, I've got to say, ironworking, I feel like I've found where I want to be. So I don't see myself leaving this trade. I had a short stint a few years ago when I was a laborer where I took a summer and left the laborers and went to the local 55 IBEW doing line construction.
Okay.
Um, at the time, I had a suspended license, so I couldn't get a Class A CDL, but I was young and stupid, so here's my young and stupid story on that one. I was traveling across the Midwest, working in substations, and we were basically we'd have a drill rig come in, we'd core down like 40 feet into the ground, and we'd pour a pier up, and that's where like your power lines would sit out of, or like your transformer pads and stuff like that in these substations. And I was making, I don't know, somewhere between two and 2,500 a week. And I was like early 20s. Of course, I thought that money was never going to stop.
Yeah.
So I was being dumb with it. And then we all got laid off. And I thought to myself, okay, no problem. I'll just go to the hall, go right back to work. And they're like, well, you can't do lineman school because you don't have a class A. You can't get a class A because you don't have a driver's license. So it was kind of after like a month and a half of sitting at home, I just called the laborers union and was like, hey, I'm ready to come back. So at least you guys got work.
I know you guys will take me, I'm coming back.
Yeah. I mean, no problem. Went right back. But that was my young and dumb story. That's, you go out, and I will say again, for the younger generation that watches, if you are traveling for work, um, don't go out of your way to try to impress the old guys with drinking with them at the bar and stuff.
Man,
You're
I've got
A,
we
wasting money, and B, you're gonna make a dumb choice.
Yep.
Myself, I got so drunk, I ended up hooking up with someone out of state, and 3 years later found out I had a kid, you know? Didn't even know about it, but I sure drank everybody under the table that night.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something we've got into on this podcast too is, drinking and drug use in the blue collar industry, and,
Oh, yeah,
it's because that most of us, men and women that work in blue collar, you've always been told to push your feelings down and, whatever you're upset about, just fucking put it down and get back to work. So that's what we've learned to do. And then on the mental side of that, it really takes a toll on us. You're trying to provide for a family, you're working 6, 7 days a week, 14 hours a day. You have no time for your family, but you're killing yourself, and we don't talk to anybody about it. I
100%.
never thought that I would talk to a therapist until after I was hurt. And even it took me, I would say, a year and a half, 2 years after I got hurt to talk to somebody. And once I did, it was like so much weight was lifted off my chest. So I definitely think it's a good idea that a lot of guys, instead of reaching for the bottle or you want to smoke dope or whatever you want to do, talk to somebody, talk to a really good friend, talk to a therapist, get it off your chest. I know we have a lot of pride and we don't want to talk to a therapist, but sometimes it's good because, drinking, that's one of the biggest things we do is we go out drinking. And the next morning you're hungover or you're still drunk. You risk hurting yourself, you risk hurting somebody, fucking something up at the job, losing your job. It's not worth it. It's just not worth it.
The mental health aspect, I've seen a lot of attention brought to it over the past couple of years, especially suicide awareness and,
Yeah,
like the the uh, the substance abuse side as well. And I take that one really close to home because I'll admit, this year, this has been the arguably the worst year of my life, right? With the divorce, um, when my wife and I separated, we were like 3, 4 months pregnant. It was literally 2 days after we found out from the ultrasound that we were having a girl. And I mean, my world fell apart and I I froze. I broke and I tried to take my life. And it ultimately it didn't work, but you know, I came home from the hospital from what I did and I came home to a protective order in place over that. And I lost my house, I lost my truck, I lost my wife, I lost my dog. Didn't get to be there when my kid was born. It took everything I had, and I was in such a dark, low place, but I got into therapy, and, I mean, to this day, 10 months later, I'm still seeing a therapist once a week, every Monday,
that's
you know,
good.
and I take whatever is bugging me, whatever drama is coming from my divorce, and I just kinda put it on the shelf for the week, and then Monday, I go and break it down with my therapist and kinda go over it so that instead of, what I would do when I was younger, before I was a dad, and just bottle it up, push it away. It doesn't matter. It's not a big deal. Nobody has to
Yep,
know about this stuff. Nobody cares, right? Don't bother people with your issues is how I always used to feel back then. Or like, hey, we can just go to the bar and take care of it there, you know? And instead, now it's like I'm in a healthier space that I can go do it the right way. My kids don't have to worry about whether or not dad's ever going to be around in their lives anymore, you know? And that's why, like, I advocate heavily for the mental health side of the blue collar life because, like you said, it- we're supposed to be we're supposed to be the big tough guys that the weight of the world doesn't weigh on our shoulders. And I think that that stigma keeps a lot of us from reaching out to get help because like I thought even at the beginning of the year was like why bother? I don't want to bother someone else with what's going on in my life.
yeah.
Why ruin their day with my shit? And I see a lot of resurgence in the topic of mental health awareness and the trades, a lot of suicide prevention, a lot of substance abuse prevention, and I think it's a great thing to be really brought up and talked heavily about now, because a lot of guys don't realize it, but the trades, the suicide rate and the substance abuse rate is more than 8 times the national average of an average person. It's
Yeah.
it's insane,
I don't
and
think a lot of people understand the amount of stress that comes with these jobs. There's a lot of danger, yeah, but the stress, you stress about the danger of the job. You stress about losing your job. You stress about what's that paycheck gonna be because you got your
mhm,
bills. And then you go home and then you try to be dad and the husband and leave work behind, but it's always on the back of your mind. And then you have whatever's happening at home to stress on. And yeah, there's a lot that comes down on you. And I want to thank you for sharing your story. I know that wasn't easy,
it's
and it's an amazing thing that you just shared that because there's probably somebody out that needs to hear this because it's true. It there's a lot happening in life and everyone is going through something, and I think that I had a guest on here and they said something that clicked in my head that I'll never forget now. And it is the biggest lie that we tell every single day of our life. And that lie is, and I never thought about this, is when you see somebody in the store and they walk by you, you know, you nod or whatever, and you usually get somebody says, "Hey, how you doing today?" And you always say, "I'm doing good. How are you?" You just lied.
Yeah.
You're not doing good. And if you're not doing good, you don't have to tell that person because you might not know them or whatever or not comfortable, but if if you say that to somebody, I want you to think about it afterwards. If you're watching this and you walk by somebody that day and you say, "Yeah, I'm doing good. How are you?" After you do that, think for a second and be like, "Was that the truth? Are you really doing good or do you have shit going on?" Because we don't know what the other person has going on. And I think that's the biggest problem is we don't say it. We just, "Yep, yeah, everything's great." And then it all bottles up and then there's that one day that you don't know what to do anymore. You don't let it get to that point.
Yeah, and I think, with the stigma behind all of it, I remember last summer we had a big safety stand down on this solar farm that I was working on. We had just had a foreman that had took his life in a company truck, and everybody was, listening to the safety stand down. And when it was over, everybody started making jokes about it. Like, hey, this job, do it long enough, you'll blow your brains out in a company truck too. And like, I think a lot of people are uncomfortable with the topic, but understand maybe the severity of it. But even the macho bravado persona still pops out at work after those conversations, like, "Oh, couldn't be me." But I think a lot of people aren't honest with themselves that, at some point you are going to hit a wall, and you are kind of gonna find yourself in a crossroad at some point in your life where you might not be okay, and
Yeah.
you gotta make a decision whether or not to get some kinda help for it or to just lay there and bleed.
Yeah.
I mean, especially, if you've got kids and you've got a family and stuff, it's important to take care of those things when they come up before it gets bad. Because even even in my situation, like, with the divorce and the kids and all that, like, I remember the first time I met my wife and I's daughter, she was like 2 months old. The protective order had been canceled out finally, and I had to fight her in court for that. And she did all kinds of petty stuff with it. And I remember, I'll never forget the judge. The judge said, "These orders of protections are shields, not swords for you to wield through your divorce." Great judge. But I remember the first time I held my newborn daughter. She wasn't really newborn anymore, I guess. She was 2 months old. And I broke down crying. Like, I was looking at her, and all I could think to myself was, I almost didn't get this moment because I didn't know what to do. And I will never forget that feeling. You know, that little girl is healthy, she's beautiful, and she's, an amazing baby. But I almost threw that all away just because I didn't know what to do when things got hard.
Yeah.
And, if there's ever one thing that I will always fight for is just it's the mental health aspect of the trades, because a lot of people go through hard shit in the trades.
It's hard, man. I appreciate you.
I mean, yeah, it's not always easy telling the story, but it's always important to get out there because there's always somebody going through something just as bad, you know, and they got to
No, I
know
appreciate it.
it's
That's
okay not to
exactly
be okay.
exactly. And I think also that a lot of people, if you guys are watching this and you have your own shit going on, you guys you're not alone. You know,
Right.
I've told with my situation with this and everything, um, when I started doing social media, I had people reaching out all over the world how my story is, helped them through something or whatever. And, it was amazing to start hearing that. But then I started getting messages saying how, like, I had one who he planned to end his life and he watched my video and messaged me that minute and said that I saved his life, and it brought it brought tears in my eyes. I mean, for my story to save somebody else's life is incredible to me. And
Yeah.
that's when I really started putting it out there that, people that have scars and this and that, don't be ashamed. Don't feel you're alone. There's always somebody going through something out there. You're not alone. Have to talk to somebody. Reach out. That's all it takes. I have people that reach out constantly on my social media, and I try to respond to everyone, especially in my comments. I try to respond to everybody because I think that if you're going to follow me on my stuff and watch my stuff and support me, well, then I should support you if you're at least
Right.
acknowledge you and reply. But yeah, I want everybody to know that you're not alone in whatever you're going through. Somebody has gone through it. You, you got
100%.
to think about that. You're not whatever's happening to you. You're not the only person in the world that is going happening or that's going on. Someone else has gone through it or they're going through it. And don't feel ashamed to ask for help. I think that is the problem that we have, especially as blue collar men and women. We feel ashamed, or we have such high pride that we don't want to ask for help. We can just do it ourselves. We can't.
Sometimes the biggest battles in life are gonna be fighting yourself, especially to get that
Absolutely.
help. You know, at some point, you gotta let the perspective of looking weak or feeling weak for asking for help, you gotta put that aside because there are people that care about you, there are people that need you,
Beautifully
especially
said.
if you got kids.
Beautifully said. Well, Brandon, would you like to give any more advice to anyone trying to get into the iron workers?
Whether you're getting into the iron workers or any other trade, your best course of action is to come in with a mindset that you're going to learn something, that you wanna learn something every day. Uh, at the end of the day, going into work and, leaving work without having learned at least one thing, I mean, what are you really doing at work then? You know? I always suggest, I know the union's not the route for a lot of people, but I suggest it. There's great benefits to it. My health insurance, top notch. I mean, it covers my entire family. My two
That's
daughters,
awesome.
my soon-to-be ex-wife, myself. I mean, therapy's free from it, which is a great thing. Um, you know, there's an HRA account where, like, when I have out-of-pocket medical expenses, I can take the bill into the HRA and get reimbursed for that out-of-pocket expense. You know, there
Damn.
there's a pension and an annuity, at least in my local, so, you have supplemental income when you retire. The younger you get into this stuff, the better off you're gonna
Better.
be if you
Oh
stick with
yeah.
it. I
Yep.
mean, I work with an older guy that's, like 5 years from retirement, and he was showing me what's in his annuity, and he knows what's in his pension, and he's been doing this since he was, like, 19, and, I mean, that guy's gonna retire with over $1,000,000 in just his pension, not to mention his annuity.
Yeah.
I mean, you put in the hours, you make the sacrifice, you do what you gotta do, and you learn what you need to do to make your career a solid advancement, and you're gonna go far. It's gonna pay off in the end. A lot of guys, especially the young ones, they don't think about the end goal of retirement, but, I mean, I know a lot of people, once they hit their mid-20s, will definitely start thinking about retirement because you want something when you get done doing this,
Yeah.
if your body still works by then, but
I was just gonna say, yeah. If you're still able to move, you want. You want something out of it.
Yeah, I mean, so I always will preach go the union route. I mean, there's so much benefit to it. I mean, hell, we even have a vacation fund, which is part of the reason I became an iron worker. Like $1 an hour goes into a vacation fund.
Really?
So
That's awesome.
it's honestly, it was one of the biggest driving factors because all that money goes into a bank account that I have to ask the union hall for permission to pull out of.
Yeah.
So I can't just go in there and start spending money retardedly. I actually, it's like a nest egg. I know a guy that
Yeah.
just, didn't touch his vacation fund for the last 10 years and just bought a brand new diesel truck.
Yeah,
Like,
because I mean, you think about it, you almost forget about it,
yeah. And the
and then
best
one
part
day
is,
somebody brings it up, you're like, "Oh shit, I have that."
right? Best
What's
part
that
is
look like?
it's untaxed money when you pull it out.
Oh, yeah, you can't beat that. You can't beat that.
100%. It's basically just a savings account.
Yeah, that
I
you
mean,
can't touch and you don't know about it. That's good to go.
so that's my best advice for anybody getting in the trades. Do your research on the benefits and make sure that that's the trade you want to go into. I mean, if I had it my way, I would have started off as an electrician, but I don't like to wear my sister's pants. But that's another.
Oh, I'm sorry, electricians.
I was talking to this one girl for a little while, and and her dad's an electrician. First thing he said to her when she found out that she was talking to an iron worker is, "What drugs is he on? How bad's his criminal record?" Like, oh, okay, well, let him know. I only didn't go the Sparky route because I don't wear my sister's pants. Oh man,
Oh,
that's
man.
one of my favorite things about the trades is just being able to rag on each other for shits and giggles.
Yes, yes. Well, man, it was awesome having you on here. It was an honor talking to you.
Yeah,
Um,
man,
I am gonna get you a shirt. We do have an
awesome.
iron worker shirt from our apparel company, arcingaheadapparel.com.
Plug it.
Guys, if you like this, make sure you like, you subscribe, you follow. And Brandon, once again, man, I appreciate you so much telling your story. I can't
Yeah,
thank you enough. I know it's not easy. And yeah, we're definitely gonna keep in touch.
100%, man.
Um, Awesome having you on, man. You have a great day and make sure you be safe at work.
Will do. Take care, man.
All right. Have a good one.
Later.